Okay, so last time we saw Moses and God talking about how God had a task for Moses, and Moses said, find someone else. Did a whole chapter's worth of, not me. I don't want it. Don't do it to me. And finally, God says, all right, look, I gave you signs. Who do you think opens your mouth? Who puts words in you? God goes through all that. Moses says, all right, so put the words in somebody else. And finally, in our red story, God said, all right, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the words, you put them in your brother Aaron's mouth, and Aaron will do the speaking. And so this is a red story, Southern Kingdom, Aaronite Kohen priesthood story, much more than a Moses Levite priest story. And God said, oh, yes, finished in last session in verse 14. Oh, look, here comes Aaron coming out to greet you. And the next thing we know in verse 15, here we go. V'dibarta elav, v'samta et hadvarim befiv, v'anochi ehyeh im ficha, v'im fichu, v'horeti etchem et asher ta'asun. So God says, V'dibarta elav, and I will speak, you will speak to him. V'samta et hadvarim befiv, and you will put the words in his mouth. V'anochi, and I, ehyeh im picha, and I will be with your mouth, the im pihu, and in his mouth, v'horeti etchem, and I will teach etchem. Now it's suddenly plural. I will teach you plural. Et asher ta'asun, all that you all, yuns, you guys will do. So, any questions on any of the words in that section?
Nope.
Yes.
Tim, I have a question. In my reading group a few minutes ago, I thought that we had seen a word like befiv in the past where the vav wasn't pronounced, or did I imagine that? I wasn't sure if it was befi or
Oh,
befi.
okay. Yes. So, if there was a letter after the vav up here in the first line, there wouldn't be then the yud. But yes, there's a vav sometimes there, which is the indicator of the pronominal suffix, but not pronounced because another pronominal suffix comes afterwards. But here, when the vav ends the word, you do pronounce it.
Okay. Oh boy. Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, sometimes the vav disappears from the pronouncing
I
uh,
see.
if it's part of the some suffix that simply indicates number and gender and uh, first, second, third person.
And it's like the second word, a love.
Right. In a lav, the yud there is not pronounced because there's something after it.
Okay, it is like you love. Okay. All right, I've got it. Thank
So
you.
if the vav has something after it, you can skip over it into the next thing. More often, it's the yud that disappears from the pronouncing than the vav.
Okay. Thank
And peh is mouth. So fiv, his mouth, picha, your mouth,
you.
pihu, his mouth. And notice sometimes pihu, his
Mhm.
mouth, and sometimes fiv, his mouth. The hu ending is also a him. But in horeti is the word that the root is that yora that gives us also mora, teacher, or Torah, the teachings. So I'm going to teach you. So
So why is it two different words for the same meaning?
um, perhaps the uh, narrator ease, emphasis,
Okay.
and
So
notice I'm
I
going
have
to
a
tell,
question.
I'm going to speak. Yes.
Um,
I tend to get a little poetic. So is it possible like picha and pihu is that a balance
It
within
could,
the
yes. That's what I'm saying, narrator style.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it absolutely could be, because remember, all of this stuff was transmitted orally and possibly even sung in some way. Some of it is clearly poetry, some of it is probably poetic style.
Okay.
Okay.
And also, as we've seen, Geffen, Goffen, Eretz, Aretz, other kinds of things, sometimes the pronunciation tells us where the punctuation is, because certainly when you're speaking orally, unless you're Victor Borga, you don't include oral punctuation. And when it's written in Torah, there's no punctuation as in top of the vowels. So, v'dibarta elav v'samta et hadvarim befiv. Va'anochi ehyeh im picha ve'im pihu. So yes, it would be tell us where to put the cadence, where to put the punctuation. And notice I'm going to speak to you, and you're going to take the words and put them into Aaron's mouth, and then I'm going to teach both of you anyway. V'diber hu lecha el ha'am, v'haya hu yihyeh lecha lefeh, v'ata tihyeh lo le'elohim. Now, we're always being told by the form critics that Elohim is the E version and Yud He Vav He is the J version, except that Elohim shows up an awful lot in the Y in the red version, and Yud He Vav He soon will show up in the blue version. But that again is the evolution of the concept of God or the use of God's name or other things. The other thing that I often point out, and I will here as well, is we don't know when Elohim is supposed to be taken as God's with a small g, and when it's supposed to be taken as Hashem, Yud He Vav He, the big guy upstairs, or the big woman upstairs, whoever it is, or the big both at the same time. So here, V'diber hu, and speaking he or speaking it, lecha, to you. In other words, Aaron's going to be your spokesperson.
So the who refers to Aaron?
The who refers to Aaron. This has
Okay.
been, God is saying, Moses, this is what you're going to say to Aaron. And now Aaron is the he. V'diber hu lecha, he will speak for you.
Oh, okay, because in the translation you put it as speaker.
Okay, yeah. Well, he will be your speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, diber is from the devar, which is both speaking and words. So could be v'diber hu lecha, he will be your spokesperson,
Okay.
or he will do the speaking for you. El ha'am, to the people. Notice we're not at Pharaoh. If you recall way back earlier in all of this stuff, Moses is first supposed to gather support among the people. He's supposed to go talk to the elders. So this is not Moses and Aaron talking to Pharaoh. This is Moses and Aaron going and talking to the Goshen guys. So hu el ha'am v'haya hu yihyeh lecha, and it will be that he will be for you, lefeh, for a mouth.
Question.
Yes.
Isn't Vehayahu past tense and Yihya Lecha future tense?
All right, here we go. Yes, old stuff we always have to keep looking at. The vav in verb formation often is called in Hebrew the vav hahipuch, or the vav of transformation. So this vav takes a future, or actually an imperfect, and makes it a past. So it becomes the past imperfect. Or it takes a past, which is the perfect, and puts it into the future, so we have the future perfect. And
I
I
have a
know
headache. What are
everybody
you
who studies
saying?
languages hates all these tense things. They get very tense about it. So technically, Vahaya would mean, and it will be that it was.
Really? Okay.
So it's already going to happen. It's going to happen, which makes it imperfect, but it's already happened, which makes it perfect.
Wow. Okay, thank
So
you.
the haya usually is translated, even though haya is was, it's usually translated as it will be. And vihiyeh, if you put a vav in front of it, which normally means it will be, it becomes it was. So yes, v'haya in the simple translations is it will be, and therefore it goes on in the regular imperfect, yihiyah, he will be.
Okay.
So
Okay.
v'haya and yihiyah are two future actions. One is a perfect future, the other is still an imperfect future. Because
Okay.
Hebrew only has two tenses, perfect and imperfect. Hebrew actually has no present tense in the way that we think of it in modern English. Because the present tense in the verb is also the noun. It's both the actor and the action. So we have Borei Priagafen is both creates the fruit of the vine and the one who is doing the creating of the fruit of the vine. And it's why hamotzi, you can make motzi, brings out, and you can put a definite article in front of a verb.
Okay.
So hamotzi
Who's
is the
following?
bringer out.
So can you give us again the two versions of the same verb in the perfect and the imperfect?
Okay, so vidibarta. Literally, if we had just dibarta, it is you spoke. Perfect. But vidibarta means it hasn't happened yet, but it's already going to be. It's already the perfect, but it's the future.
Okay.
Vidibarta, and you will speak to him. But in God's eyes, you've already spoken to him.
So when you say the imperfect, it's really how we would read the future.
The imperfect is how we read the future, the perfect is how we read the past. But the past imperfect means it's in the past, but it hasn't been finished. And the future perfect is it's in the future, but it's already done.
But when you use the perfect and imperfect, we could also interpret them as the past and the future.
Except
In terms of the actual, in terms of the actual verb, like in modern Hebrew.
well, in modern Hebrew doesn't use this very much.
Oh, I see. Different words
Well, because
or different
modern Hebrew,
translation.
which takes biblical and liturgical Hebrew, was invented by a European language person.
But is Dibarti then the perfect,
Dibarta is just I spoke.
right?
Edaber, I will speak.
Right.
But in biblical language, you use vidibarta as if it were edaber. But it has a different sense, probably for the biblical author, of the sense of it hasn't happened yet in our eyes, but it has happened yet in God's eyes. So it's our future, God's past. But that gets into a deeper level of theology of the biblical audience that we're not really have time for. So moving on. So you're going to be my spokesperson. Va'ata tihiyeh, simple, imperfect future. Va'ata tihiyeh lo le'elohim, and you will be to him le'elohim. In other words, as a God. You will be the God. You will God him.
Aaron.
Moses will God Aaron.
Okay.
As we saw in, and we'll see where Moses is told that he will be a God to Pharaoh.
Mm.
So is this, you will be me, translating Elohim as capital G, or you will be like a God, or you will be some divine or divinity or semi-divine. You're the puppet master in the sense that God is the puppet master in that sense. Moving on to verse 17. Vet hamateh hazeh tikach biyadecha asher ta'aseh bo et ha'otot. And we went through that whole throwing the staff down,
Yes.
picking it up, and Moses was taught how to do it. But as we will see later, Aaron is the one who gets to do it. So here, ve'et hamateh and hamateh hazeh, this staff, tikach biyadecha, you will take in your hand, asher ta'asebo, that you will do in it, et ha'otot, the signs. And the signs is an interesting plural because so far the only signs he's been given are the throw the staff down, pick it up, or the put your hand in your garment and pull it out. So we haven't seen the staff do a lot of other miracles yet. But the staff that Aaron has will become the snake staff, but the staff that Moses has will become the splitting the sea staff, getting water from the rock staff, doing other kinds of things. All of us, and then if we were to read the story, the next thing in the red story is verse 19. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe b'Midyan, lech shuv Mitzrayim, ki metu kol ha'anashim hamivakshim et nafshecha. And so now I've given you the job. I've set Aaron up. He's coming this way to greet you. You're still here in Midian at this bush for the last 3 chapters, hanging out with me, arguing with me. All right, enough already. Go do it. So take the staff that you've got it. And it makes sense that after you pick up the staff, now go to work. And God said to Moses in Midian, Lech, shuv. So go, return. Very quick. Mitzrayim, Egypt. Ki metu kol ha'anashim, for have died all the men, hamivakshim et nafshecha, who are requesting your soul. And that harkens back to he killed the taskmaster. Pharaoh found out about the killing of the taskmaster, and that was how Moses fled in the first place and ended up in Midian with his father-in-law, shepherding, and that was sometime in his early life. We don't know how old he was when he killed the taskmaster, but our guesses were maybe late teens, 20s, maybe 30. And now we will find out that he's 80 years old.
Do you think this means that the dead are seeking his soul?
No, the ones who were seeking his soul are now dead.
Right. But
The ones who were seeking his souls were the Pharaoh.
I see.
Yeah, Pharaoh and all of his courtiers and his bounty hunters and his ICE agents and everybody else. And they're all dead, which makes sense if 50 odd years have gone by.
Oh, is it supposed to be 50 odd years?
Well, he killed the taskmaster. Our guess is late teens, early 20s. And we know now he's 80.
Oh,
So that means he's been hanging out in Midian for 60 years, doing nothing except getting married and having a couple of kids and shepherding some flocks. And all of a sudden, now 60 years later, he comes across this bush and God starts talking to him.
were we told that he was 80?
Yes, because he embarks immediately following all this, he gets the people out after a series of plagues. And he embarks on a 40-year journey, and he dies at the end of that 40-year journey at the age of 120.
Okay, so we didn't know at this point.
No, we don't know at this point. We have no idea how old he is, but we know from the rest of the story that he starts his job at 80. So we now know, we don't know how old he was when he killed the taskmaster, but I doubt that he hung around in the palace for his first 70 years. And then at 70 wandered out and suddenly said, hey, stop beating those people in Goshen. That was much more the kind of action that some late teen, palace-raised, spoiled brat would do. Impulsive kid.
But then Miriam is even older.
Yes, Miriam and Aaron.
Yes.
but they die younger because they die before the 40 years is up. We also don't know a lot about the intervening 39 years when we get to the actual wandering.
Yeah.
Our story starts in the first and second years of the wandering and picks up again in the 39th year of the wandering. But right now we're here. So meanwhile, we haven't seen a lot of the blue story. You'd have to go way back to find it. But the blue story, he's at the bush. He's talking with God about this task. And all of a sudden, finally, we get a follow-up to that where God says, go do it. And apparently in the blue story, he says, okay. And he does it. So very brief encounter until we get suddenly to chapter 6, and we learn about all the stuff that went on in between chapters 3 and 4 in the blue story. So it seems at this point that Moses goes up to a mountain of God, talks to God, and then God says, I got a job for you. And then Moses apparently says, okay. Because the next thing we know, verse 18, Vayelech Moshe Vayashov El Yeter Chotno Vayomer Lo Elchana Va'ashuva El Achai Asher B'Mitzrayim Ve'ereh Ha'odah Chaim Vayomer Yitro LeMoshe Lech L'Shalom. So Moses has had an encounter. God says, I got a job for you. Moses says, okay. Vayelech Moshe. And so Moses went, and this is again that going up. Yelech here is he will go, but Vayelech is he went. So this is the opposite case. Vayashov, again the same thing, and returned El Yeter Chotno, to Yeter, his father-in-law. So Yeter, Yitro is sometimes called Yitro, sometimes here he's called Yeter, sometimes he's going to be called Chobab. So he's got a bunch of names, or maybe he's known by different titles. And here, by the way, notice he's no longer Yitro Chotno Kohen Midian. In other places, when we had Yitro in the earlier stories, he was always not just the father-in-law of Moses, but he was the Kohen Midian, the priest, the religious leader of the Midianites. Is Yeter his another form, sort of his nickname, an abbreviation of his name Yitro, or is Yeter a scribal error where they forgot to put the Vav in? There's no way for us to know, but because it's not there, there's lots of good commentary. Again, Midrash commentary. Hey, that's not supposed to be like that. Okay, let's start telling some stories. Vayomer Lo, and so this is Vayomer Lo. He said to him, so clearly from what's being said, it's Moses saying to his father-in-law, Elcha na, I will go, please. Va'ashuva, and I will return, El Achai, to my brethren, literally my brothers, but really my brethren. There's not a lot of Hebrew separating the two terms of when it's brother biologically or familially, and when it's more brethren kind of relationship. But I'm going to return to my brothers, Asher b'Mitzrayim, that are in Egypt, ve'ereh ha'odah chaim, and I will see if they are still alive. Which again seems to indicate there's been a lot of time between the time he left and the time that he's going back. Because if this happens in a short span, he goes, he gets married, he has a kid, and then he goes back, why is he going to wonder if they're still alive? On the other hand, if it's been 50, 60 years, he doesn't know what's happening to the Goshenites, his brethren. So I'm going to go check up on them and see if they're still alive, because maybe they aren't, and then I don't have to do my job anyway. We don't know what's going on or why he's saying this.
Mhm.
Vayomer Yitro Moshe, and so Yitro, now in full name, says to Moshe, Lech l'shalom, go for shalom,
Go in peace.
go for peace, wellness, wholeness, go have a good time, a fulfilling time. Notice we often say in English, go in peace.
Mhm.
In Hebrew, you never say Lech bishalom because that means you're dead. When you put the body in the coffin, it's Lech bishalom, go
You
in peace. When you're parting ways, you say Lech lishalom, go to peace or go for peace. Any questions on this stuff other than, yes, but I have no idea where to start?
Well, I have a question, and it may be really something of a reach,
Okay.
but this it's a connection that I'm making in my mind. So, in Shakespeare, when you get short monosyllabic words, those are Anglo-Saxon origin, and they're a simple thought. Longer polysyllabic words are a Latin origin, and the person's in a higher academic frame of mind. So I'm looking at lech, shuv, and wondering if there's any kind of parallel in that like short directive as opposed to a long flowery statement.
Probably, although not for the same linguistic kind of reason.
Okay.
But it seems when we get those very, very quick, short, imperative forms, there's a sense of urgency given to it. And
Right.
again, with this being oral, it would have been Vayelech Moshe Vayashov El Yeter Chodno Vayomer Lo Elchana Va'ashuva El Achai. This whole very long, please let me go. I'm doing this. And Yetro says to him, or actually God had said to him down below, then God says, stop dawdling. Yeah, stop dilly-dallying. Then Vayomer Adonai el Moshe b'Midyan, lech, shuv. Much more of a sense of urgency as opposed to the blue story, which was much more drawn out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mona?
What I was going to say, sort of spiritually here that I see, out of this is the fact that he's talking about, and I don't think it's just through Moses. I think there's a whole spiritual dimension where God works through us. God talks through us. We are and we embody the spirit within us that comes through. And I think that this whole thing about, he'll speak through God, when he talked about to Aaron and to other people, he's just a vehicle, which kind of makes most human beings vehicles for godliness, if they adhere to the right things.
If you have to actually listen and transmit.
Exactly. And I think that that's the thing. I mean, I think that some people are are very holy and are more spiritual because they do transmit more. It's not their ego, it's there's a higher level of existence that's coming through them.
Yes. And also, by the way, notice the flowery language of 18 and the brief imperative language of 19 are two different authors.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
the power that we get from that is by putting them together and not color coding the Torah text and the Torah scroll and not knowing that they're two different authors. It sounds like Moses is trying to dilly-dally, delay, and postpone, and God is getting upset with him and becoming very short. So the two different stories, which may have been simply stylistic, become then that sense, as you said, that God is speaking in a Shakespearean form.
Mm.
All right, next week. Notice now we're going back and forth a little bit. So again, if you want to really follow the story, do the red to the red to the red, and then the blue is just a little interpolation from what was left of what we just did, where Moses is having this little dialogue with his father-in-law, and then his father-in-law says, "Well, go ahead," and then Moses pretty much says, "Okay, I'm going ahead."
Who's black?
And black is the editor redactor.
Yeah.
And what we're going to notice is, what did the editor redactor add to the story in the middle of the red story that was not originally part of the red story? So sometimes the black is a jump from the blue to the red or the red to the blue, but here it's a jump within the red story because the red story doesn't tell us what we need to know according to the editor redactor.
And I see that he jumps in the middle of a sentence
Yep,
with the other
exactly.
one rather than just a full sentence. It's different.
Well, both of them.
Yeah,
Both of them are
that's
stuck into
right.
the middle of the sentence by the editor redactor, but the sentences are complete without that intervention.
Yeah.
All right, so
But
here's
can
your
I ask,
reading.
but this is your interpretation based on the language used?
Based on, yes, based on the language used, based on um, now well over 100 years of examination by scholars
Mhm.
on who wrote these sections, and sometimes the words that are used, sometimes the language, sometimes the viewpoint, as within Genesis, early Genesis especially, we could see language that was used that would be known to shipbuilders that wouldn't be known to farmers and uh, flock herders and Bedouins in the flood story, and then place locations. Abraham in the red story goes down to Egypt. Abraham and says the wife's sister. Abraham in the blue story goes coastal to Gerar. So it's done on a whole variety of analytic tools. I'm not a scholar in the analytic tools. I accept the scholarly work of the analyzers,
Mhm.
but I've added a little bit of my twist because I find their arguments compelling. So here's for reading practice for next week. Vayikach Moshe et ishto ve'et banav vayarkivem al hachamor vayashov artsa Mitzrayim. Vayikach Moshe et mateh ha'Elohim biado. Verse 21. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe belechtecha lashuv Mitzrayma re'ei kol hamoftim asher samti viadecha va'asitam lifnei Faro. Va'ani achazek et libo v'lo yishalach et ha'am. Verse 22. Va'amarta el Paro, Ko amar Adonai beni bechori Yisrael. Verse 23. Va'omar elecha shalach et beni va'avdeni v'tima'en v'shalcho hine anochi horeg et bincha bechorecha. 24. Vayhi vaderech bamalon vayifgeshehu Adonai vayevakesh hamito. Vatikach 25 Vatikach Tzipora Tsur Vatichrot et Orlat Bena Vataga Laraglav Vatomer Ki Chatan Damim Atali. 26. Vayaref mimenu az amara chatan damim lamulot.
Rabbi, the first word in that line in 26 is what?
Vayiref.
Okay,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
Vayiref.
Okay, thank you.
So a couple of things besides the reading to watch for is, what did the editor put in that wasn't there in the story in the black? And what's up with this whole story suddenly in verse 24, 25, and 26 that doesn't seem to connect to anything
Yeah.
along the way?
Yeah, it takes a whole turn. It's
Yes, so that's what you'll be looking at. We'll be looking at next week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
All right, good to see everybody.
Thank
Stephanie,
you.
glad to
Have
join
a
you.
good week, everybody.
And I
Thanks.
will also
Tov.
make
Shavua
let
Tov.
me make the let me stop this. All right. Let me make the plug actually in the recording for those who are in the neighborhood of Temple Beth Zion in Brookline on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. The Torah study there has a whole much more interactive way of approaching Torah study. Can't obviously do this because they have to do a whole parsha in 1 week, where we do a parsha in about 3 months. But it gives a whole different way of analyzing, as Mona said, the spiritual dimension, the modern interpretation, and various things. And yes, I'm there pretty much every Saturday. I love to go there, love to hear people, but periodically we'll throw in, that's not what the Hebrew says.
I love that
And
sentence. Yeah.
there, remember, we've got two different vantage points, two different authors, two different narratives. Some of the other people point out that whereas I say two authors, they say two narratives,
Yeah.
and we have multi-narratives. So I do
Where
endorse.
are you now?
So we are in the parsha. We just did the Ten Commandments last week.
I have
This
to
week,
go. I'm sorry, but I have
yeah,
to
that's
go.
fine.
Take care, guys. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.
This week we did Mishpatim, the follow-up to the Ten Commandments, and pretty soon we're going to spend a whole bunch of weeks on the tabernacle. But we have
Cool.
to we have to move along.
Okay. Well,